Florida State prepares for game week against Georgia Tech.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping by to talk some Noles football. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. With all the sports kind of slowing down there in July and early part of August, we've got the NFL back, we've got MLB, we've got Florida State football starting. So don't worry, FanDuel is hooking you up every single day with a boost or a bonus. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. With Florida State going to Ireland, there's more travel involved, so you got to start your preparation a little early. They are essentially in game week, even on a Friday. So what does that mean? Practice, although the days are a little goofy, you got to do it now. You got to prepare your last scrimmage. You got to prepare for your last meetings about who's starting, packages, all of it. It is a lot of stuff that goes into preparing for a first football game of any season. And the Noles are taking on an opponent they can score some points in particular. So every detail matters. Florida State should win the game, but if you're prepared right, you eliminate the chance for any opportunity for Georgia Tech to really win, barring something completely unforeseen. So today I'm going to break down 10 things that I think are critical for Florida State to work on between now and the time they hit the plane to go overseas. So without further ado, we're going to talk about everything. And this is not necessarily in any particular order, but some of the key ones I'm going to bring up right off the bat. This is for me, so you know how you want to do your game plan in terms of play calls, especially on offense. Finalize the starters. If there are any questions at all, the scrimmage they're going to have on Friday is part of it. And then they're going to practice again on Saturday to work it out. And then really like Monday, Tuesday, you do some basic things. Wednesday, kind of walk through. Thursday, you leave. Friday, you're walking around. I'm sure they're going to take them some places, and then you have game. That's how this works. So you've got really about 72 hours to know everything you're going to do, and then it's pretty much just light practice, walk through, get on a plane. Then also just as a basic point here, if you don't have your starters for your base offense and defense, you're certainly not going to have for nickel and dime, third down, 2 minutes. So all of that's important. Number two, as Norvell and numerous people have asked him about this, the conversation about wide receivers constantly comes up in press conferences. Doesn't even matter if it's Norvell that's at the podium. It could be one of the offensive coaches that are out there, a player, whatever. It does not matter. People want to know. Well, so do I. But I look at it a little bit differently. We all think that Malik Benson, based on everybody I've spoken to, is going to be the number one for Florida State. That's good news. You still need a number two. Georgia Tech's a good defense to start against because it's a Division I team, but they're not great in the passing game on D. I don't think that Florida State should, quote unquote, struggle. They'll move the ball against them, but is it just spraying it around? Or will somebody at least start to take that number two role? I think they will throw to a lot of different guys. I mentioned that multiple times leading up to today. But it would be nice if somebody had a couple of dominant plays. The way they catch the ball, the way they ran the route, the effort that they show, ability to break a tackle after the catch, even if a defender is, quite frankly, in the right position to make a play. Are you just better? Are you using the teachings that everybody on Florida State staff gives you? These are yes, no check boxes that coaches use, speaking of depth charts, that they will look at before the game. And you can establish yourself to go up the depth chart if you're one of those backups and you make a critical play. It could be Span, it could be Hakeem, it could be anyone, whether they start or they don't. If you play well in a game, it's going to hold more water than what you do in a practice. At least I would hope so. Somebody needs to step up, make a critical play, prove to Norvell and all the Noles nation that they are the number two receiver, maybe even challenge Malik for number one. That's a big factor because if you're going to go to the college football playoff and you just have like one guy with 60, 70 catches and nobody else with more like 30, 35, you can double that guy and you can take him out. Fair or not, every game, and I know Norvell won't talk about it this way, but this is reality. Every game is a lead to the playoff. That's how this works. You have to calculate where you're at by midseason to look at it a little differently. But for now, Malik is the guy, and there's no definitive number 2. They need to fix that. Number 3, situational football. The scrimmage should help this because they're going to do a bunch of it. I'm not going to spend much time talking about it, but your nickel package on offense, like who do you expect them to use? Is it going to be more of a true nickel, like a bigger safety? Will they use a smaller corner and just go speed? Will they use different things? How do we combat that if they surprise us? This is the play on, play off kind of situation, and having a fifth-year senior quarterback is helpful. Get yourself out of bad plays. If they have a look that you don't like, call timeout, shift, whatever it is, check with me, all those kinds of things. And you got to do it with all the packages too. It's a lot. All those things you're leading up to when you go into the scrimmage to see if they actually execute it. Defense, exact same thing. Are they showing us a 2 tight end look we didn't expect? They might throw some of that out because Florida State's got some pretty good tight ends. A guy like West can be your number 2. Maybe it's Landon Thomas. How does Florida State's defense operate? If they don't do well, it gives you a chance to work on it at least over the next few practices before you play Georgia Tech. Situational football is huge. Seeing it live in the scrimmage, cannot get enough of it. It is vital to what Florida State will do against Georgia Tech on the 24th. Number 4, DJ must be sharp. That includes, and in most important way, patience. I'll explain that momentarily, but it is most about running the ball. What do I mean? If you have a pass play called, Georgia Tech lines up, they got 7 in the box, safeties, 2 high safeties. That's the old school off tackle, draw, lead play. It's boring as all get out. A lot of fans hate it. Too bad, do it anyway. 2nd down and 5. Boring often wins. Too bad, do it anyway. DJ is the guy I expect to make that play call and switch it. Younger quarterbacks, maybe, maybe not. Oh, my guy will make the 50-50 ball. Don't play low percentage football. And again, I don't expect DJ Uiagalelei to even come close to thinking about doing that. They didn't pick him up by being an idiot. They knew he was going to be a good player. That being stated, I also expect Florida State to bust some runs if Georgia Tech is very conservative, and that is what I expect them to be, especially early, because they want to make Florida State earn the field. I get it. And go down there and try and score in the red zone when it's congested. It's one of the oldest ways to do football. They did it a lot last year in terms of trying. I watched one of their games where they played a lot of zone and tried to keep guys in front of them. They just don't tackle well enough, and the run gap fits in the front 7 weren't consistent enough, and they'll give up 2 plays where it's like 2 or 3 yards each, and then they'll give up a 17-yard run on a basic off-tackle play or toss sweep. Georgia Tech, if you're consistent with running the ball, they will be exposed. That I know. Yesterday's podcast was even talking about how Florida State would expose them. Fully expect that to happen again. Number 5. This is the guy that if you could only pick one player beyond DJ, because it's the quarterback, that I'm really looking to see if he dominates, steps up and takes charge. This is your guy on defense. Big Darrell needs to be the guy. Defensive tackle that had to sit out all last year. Transferred in from Miami, got the short end of the deal from the NCAA. Can't teach 320, 330 pounds. Very athletic guy. He's roughly 6'6". They need him, ironically, playing next to his old high school teammate Joshua Farmer, to have a great game. Set the tone. If they do that and they stuff a pretty darn good Georgia Tech rushing attack, had a 1,000-yard rusher last year, it'll put a lot of pressure just with the down and distance on Haynes King, the quarterback that threw 16 interceptions last year. That's a lot. I think that'll be a problem for them. If they're able to do anything else with other guys and run blitzes and all that, that's fine. I expect them to. The key is still Big Darrell. If he's that guy where they have to double sometimes, that obviously opens up Farmer on the interior, Patrick Payton, and everybody else. They got plenty of guys on the edge. Florida State's defense takes another step up. I know they lost Verse, and you're not going to do it with just one guy, and it's a different position too. D-tackle is a little different than D-end. But I think he can be the most physically gifted guy up front. When he wants to go, it's going to be hard. So we're going to see if he can do it. And that's the guy I'm personally going to watch next weekend the most when the Noles take on the Yellow Jackets, because If he's on, I don't see how Georgia Tech's going to really be able to handle Florida State's front. Next up, we're going to continue on with my top 10 list right here on Locked On Seminoles. Have you downloaded the Gametime app yet? If you have not, you should, because if you want to go to a concert, an MLB game, if you want to go to anything really that's sport related, your best opportunity is to go to Gametime. I'm going to give you two main reasons that I like it. Convenience. I can find, for instance, a Florida State game. Say you're looking up something, you want to travel to one of their away games, Miami or otherwise. You can click on it by saying Florida State football. It'll give you a list of games. You click on the games and you just pick the seat. It'll give you the view. Take you about 15 seconds. That is convenient. Number two, if you want the opportunity to know what your price is up front, you can set it up so you do that. All-inclusive pricing so you don't get the surprise at the end when you're checking out what the total. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now that we've talked about Big Daryl, let's move on to number 6. Which freshman will make an impact in this game? 2 points of thought there. First games, it's really rough. How many will they take overseas? How will they act for their first game as a Florida State Seminole being a freshman in Ireland? That's wild. And then finally, this is a deep roster. Will any of them truly have a role on 1st and 10 situations and not just special teams? I don't know. It would be a great sign, and it's something Florida State fans should look at. You can tell who's really good just by basically who's playing. This is not anything more than a forest for the trees. I expect Cam Davis to get in the lineup. I've talked about that. One of the receivers, maybe Elijah Moore. But the closer that you get from the outside to the middle of the field, the harder it is traditionally to play, because that's about man strength. That's about weight room time. That's about years in the strength and conditioning program. Cam Davis is rare as it gets. He's a horse. 218, 220 pounds, something like that. If you have anybody in that range that can play, okay, great. But they're still even deep at running back. It's not a lock that Cam Davis plays. They're good. Sam Singleton, Keziah Holmes. You have good guys coming off the bench. Oh, by the way, Rodell Williams just transferred in. You still have Tofili. They are loaded. Oh, Jalen Lucas. There's no doubt Florida State is loaded at running back, and I probably still miss somebody there. Very good group. Question is, can Cam or somebody else find an edge to do it? And my guess is the following. Special teams will certainly be there. Makai Danzy, another freshman running back, speedster. He might return a punt or a kickoff, wouldn't shock me. And there's also the packages. One of these guys might come in a 3rd down to be the slot receiver. They rotate all the receivers through different spots and they move them around to get them prepared. Well, they do some of that at running back too, meaning the running backs will work in the slot, so they're accustomed to it. Jalen Lucas will certainly be that guy. He's a guy that has so much speed and so much quickness you're going to. But the freshmen, it'll be hard. I'm curious if any of them do, and especially on defense. Maybe Kai Bates or somebody that's a little more physically ready to play could play some, but that's a deep hitter. Just curious, and it's a good sign if any of them were able to play for the Noles against Georgia Tech. Number 7, catching interceptions. I've talked about this a few times. Just generically first, before I hit the Georgia Tech point, don't drop the ball. Florida State did not maximize their interception opportunities last year. They were a great secondary in general, but they did not, quote unquote, maximize. If it hits you in the hands, you got to bring it down. It's that simple. Second part of that is the Georgia Tech equation. I said it earlier. Haynes King had 16 picks. That is terrible. He's going to put it in harm's way until otherwise proven. When somebody like Big Daryl gets in your face and causes duress and he throws it up, don't drop it. You can put this game out of reach potentially with the pick 6. If you go up 7-0 mid-first quarter, they make a couple first downs and he throws a dumb flat pass and you jump it because you're in flat defender in a cover 2, well, then by golly, take it to the house. Do not drop the ball. These are the things that change games. How many times you heard an announcer say, boy, he wish he could have that one back? This year, that is one of my prime emphasis for Florida State. Doesn't have to be a DB either. It could be a D lineman. Those guys always talk about, I can catch, coach. Okay, well, when it comes to you, when they make a dumb decision on a screen to throw it right to the defensive lineman, do not let the ball hit the ground. Linebackers, DJ Lundy, guys like that, go get it. Take it to the house. No hesitation. That is a pet peeve, and I think that Florida State has a chance to get one of those pick sixes against the Yellow Jackets. Number 8, this one is annoying. There will not be a single Florida State fan disagree with this. Lock, stock, guaranteed. Last year, they were atrocious in one category. Penalties. Penalties were killers. It's amazing how much Florida State overcame. You know what they were in total number of penalties last year that were accrued against them? 104th in the nation. There is never a stat that Florida State should be 104th. Nothing even close. That is awful. That is lack of mental discipline. That is a lack of composure. That is a lack of keeping yourself in control and listening to your coaches. And probably about another half dozen things that I could come up with. Norvell, he deserves some of the credit for having a good program. He also deserves some of the blame for this. They could have been better. They got to do a better job coaching kids. There's got to be worse penalties for the penalties, meaning what they've got to do after a game, up, down. I don't know what it is. They have to change that. They got away with it last year. If you come in 104th, second year in a row, it's going to cost you a game. Don't let it be the Georgia Tech game. It could be a false start, illegal motion. I don't care what it is, especially those pre-snaps. Not acceptable. Absolutely, unequivocally not acceptable. 104th in the nation? Really? No good. Number 9, against Georgia Tech in particular, this is just specific against them. If you run the ball well, and again, I've said this 100 times going into the show, 221, 31 yards rushing, whatever it was again. I think it was 221 they allowed. 131st in the country. They were garbage on defense against the run. Worst team in the Power 5, period. They're going to be better this year. I'm confident of that, but they're still not going to be much better than, say, 100 to 90th, I would guess. They're not deep enough. They don't have enough playmakers. They've got some good athletes, but they just miss run gap fits. They make mental errors. If you are consistent, like I said earlier, it's okay if it's boring. If they show cover 2, cover 3, they're playing soft, they don't have enough guys in the box, make it 2nd and 5, run the ball in between tackles. If you pop one, great, it's a bonus. Boring is good. Run the ball well on first down, force them to make an adjustment, take them out of their comfort zone. If you get one-on-one matchups with Malik in particular, but what about Kyle Morlock on a seam route against one of their safeties, something like that, whatever it may be, you will get more of those if you run the ball and you're patient. If Florida State averages even 4.5 yards a carry, they'd probably be in good shape. If they get above 5 to maybe even 5.5, they got a chance to pull away in this game a little quicker than I even originally thought. The final point that I want to make about my list, you have to be good on special teams to be a top-level team. And one of the reasons from a point ago, 2 points ago, that they overcame the penalties would be special teams. Florida State last year, if you look at the numbers and combine punt, field goal kicking, all those things together, Florida State was really good. Mastromanos might be the best punter in the country coming back. He's on some All-American list, and he deserves it. He'll be a Ray Guy Award finalist, all those things. It's okay to punt. It's okay if you pull up and kick the field goal, take the points. Those things are okay. Maximize them now. The only thing left, I'm not worried about the kicking part of it. It's the blocking schemes, etc. First game of the year, sometimes special teams are exposed, especially for a team coming off such a fantastic effort the year before. I don't know if Florida State will be ready in that regard because I don't know if any team, an NFL team even, will be. There's just nothing quite like live action for a punt block opportunity, for a long field goal where you got to shoot it a little bit lower to get the speed up and not kick it as high and loose trajectory. You get one of those blocked and it goes the other way and they get 6 out of it. It changes the momentum of the game and, of course, the scoreboard itself. Curious to see how Florida State special teams play because if they do well, there's really no reason to think, again, they have better players. They got more depth. I really like the coaching staff. Florida State should win this game. To wrap up today's show, I'm going to talk about just that. Overall thoughts as we get into game week, Florida State playing Georgia Tech in Ireland. That's next on Locked On Seminoles. I love sports. I love them so much. I do not want them to stop. But right before college football and all the things that are getting ready to happen was the sporting world gets started again. We don't have quite as many games to watch, as many things to do. That's okay, because FanDuel is going to hook you up with something whenever you want, all the time. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that you are in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all its customers with a booster or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone all summer long. So head over to FanDuel and start making the most out of summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. I just kind of want to give an overview of my thoughts here for the Florida State Seminoles going in. I'm much higher on Florida State than I was, like, say, late December, early January, like with what I thought was going to happen with the portal. They've hit it. They've done a good job of developing some of the freshmen. Some obviously enrolled early. That certainly helps. Guys like Elijah Moore, Cam Davis, all these different players coming in. They've helped push, make the depth chart better and make it a better squad. And I think they've got more congruency than what I even thought they could. And I give Norvell and those guys a lot of credit often for how they've developed their roster, no matter where they've gotten their players. They've done a great job. Maybe the best program in college football in that regard. But against Georgia Tech, there are some unusual obstacles. Playing in Ireland is not normal. How do you keep the focus of the kids against a team that no matter what you do, they're not going to 100% respect? They won't do it. I don't care what the old school people say out there. Kids today will not respect a team that gave up all those yards and points. They will not do it. How do you keep them motivated, even if it was a Doak, let alone in Ireland? That's an obstacle. And also, just how do you keep the battles going for competition for, first string, pick a spot. Left tackle is probably going to be Darius. Defensive end, yeah, that's Patrick Payton. How do you keep the guys engaged that aren't starting? These are same battles you have to take on every year as a coaching staff and really as a locker room. We'll see what they have been able to do up until this point, and really as we get through this week when they play next Saturday, because you'll see focus or not when Florida State kicks off, because I guarantee you Georgia Tech has nothing to lose. They think that they're being disrespected because they're a double-digit underdog the last time I checked by every sports book. And this is the first game of the year where goofy things happen. There are some unusual things going on, but Florida State's still the better team. I think they're going to win by a couple touchdowns. I don't have an exact prediction yet. I'll give that next week. But these are things you have to think about. Try to look at it from Norvell's perspective and the coaching staff. It's not normal to start on August 24th either, before I forget. This is a lot earlier. You're starting a week to 2 weeks earlier than normal. Your fall camp started earlier. It's hot as all get out in Tallahassee. It's rough to send kids to those kind of practices, but that's where you are. How will they adjust? So that's how I'm going to end today's show, because I think it's a really unique scenario for Florida State. They have an opportunity to set the bar high. If they can overcome some of these mental obstacles, they got the better team. I already talked about why with my 10 points today, but this is a team that should start 1-0. It's game week. It's time for Florida State football to kick it into high gear. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles football with me. After this, please stop by and see my guy, Spencer McLaughlin, at Locked On College Football. He's going to talk about this game quite a bit. Wouldn't be surprised if I was on his show this next week. And he's also going to be talking about NIL, grant of rights, all the big box things going on in college football over at the Locked On College Football Show. So for Brian Smith here at Locked On Seminoles, I appreciate y'all stopping in. I will see you again very soon.